Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our next Brazil-Canada Mining Talks of the Day, Advancement of Women in the Brazilian Mining Sector, hosted in partnership with Women in Mining Brazil and IBRAM. I'm Carolina Alberna, CEO of the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce, and I'll be your MC here today. I'll just like to thank quickly all our sponsoring and partnering companies for the trust and support. This session will review the first year of the Women in Mining Brazil and discuss the impact of the Brazilian Action Plan for the signatory companies. The objective will also recognize companies' commitments to gender inclusion and introduce the need to look into the whole mining supply chain by adding supplier diversity and programs to the conversation. Before I invite our first speaker, I just wanted to once again during the PDAC congratulate two of our speakers today, both Jamile Cruz and Heather Gamble, for earning the 2021 Business Changemakers Award by the Globe and Mail that was announced last week, an award that recognizes the 50 emerging leaders transforming business today in Canada. So congratulations to both of you. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to learn from you both every single day. So thank you for being here. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Flávio Penido, President at IBRAM, the Brazilian Mining Institute, to say a few words. Flávio, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Good afternoon for everybody. And I would say some words about this movement that we are talking about now. Inspired by the talk of this panel, when a movement makes a difference, I would like to say that movement, Women in Mining Brazil, or WIN Brazil, in a little over than 1 year of activities, has already had impacts in the entrepreneurial culture of Brazilian mining, especially in the large companies, exactly those that are referenced in this industry. And I must highlight, it has also impacted IBRAM's culture. After all, it has involved us much more seriously in the agenda of diversity and inclusion, topics that had no significant space in the routine of our organization. However, I am proud and satisfied to say that is changing. In addition to supporting WIN Brazil since the beginning, also with a representative on the board, we have mobilized our associated companies to participate and encourage the movement. And WIN Brazil will bring good news now in April. Congratulations. Next month, when the WIN Brazil Action Plan will complete 1 year, the movement will publicly disclose the first performance indicators of the inclusion and diversity policy in 17 mining companies that have adhered to the plan and committed to internalize strategies for the inclusion of the women, measuring, checking, and reporting indicators. Those performance indicators are the result of a methodology developed by WIN Brazil and the consulting firm EY. Data were collected between November and February. I did not have yet access to the results, but I believe that we will see an upward curve in the maturity of the agenda for gender inclusion in Brazilian mining. Nevertheless, I know that we will need to evolve a lot. Those results should inspire more companies of the sector to adopt concrete measures to open more space in all corporate hierarchies for women. A survey conducted by IBRAM showed that women participation represents 44% of the labor market in Brazil, being only 13% in the mining sector. Mining Brazil needs to act fast and with a lot of commitment from all those who participate in it to catch up in terms of gender equality, the result of traditional and limited culture, which is outdated but is still existing in many productive segments. Mining companies in Brazil and IBRAM want to be part of a sector that acts to change this situation by encouraging women to pursue a professional career to the highest level of the hierarchy, and at the same time, encouraging mining companies to recognize the extent of the diverse pool of talent. And to speak of talent, we have recently been informed that the ranking of the 100 most inspiring women in the world, organized by Women in Mining UK, that whose results among the selected women, the 100 selected women, 4 are Brazilian, and one of them, Ana Cunha, is the director of the mining company Kinross and the board member of IBRAM. The presence of Brazilian professionals this ranking is for our organization and for the Brazilian mining another example of how the leadership, experience, dedication, knowledge, and results demonstrated and achieved by the woman should be seen as strategic for the conduction of the modern sustainable mining. Mining in Brazil needs gender diversity in all its area of activity. After all, it needs to expand its power of listening and understanding the internal and external demands and propose solutions that are adherent to the desires of the general public, which is characterized precisely by diversity. After all, Brazilian mining is undergone a broad transformation in all its production process, management, operational safety, relationship with people, and respect to environment. Diversity in the workplace, encompassing the various groups in terms of ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, abilities, is essential for mining to meet these objectives. There is no other road, and we are starting to walk it. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, Flavio, for your words. We're very pleased with the partnership with IBRAM and the role that IBRAM is playing in diversity and inclusion in Brazil. So thank you very much. Next, I would like to invite Michael Grant, Assistant Deputy Minister for the Americas for Global Affairs Canada, to say a few words. So Michael, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Carolina, for inviting me. Bom dia a todos e todos. It's really great to be with you again for this very important meeting. As the title states, women in mining is a defined business priority, and that's exactly how we look at it. I'd like to really commend the work of BCCC in making today's event possible and for bringing together such a great panel of speakers. And let me extend my congratulations to Heather and Jamile for their well-deserved recognition. Diversity and inclusion in the mining industry, in particular as it relates to gender equality, very much reflects a cornerstone of Canada's feminist foreign policy priorities and our inclusive trade agenda. Canada has adopted a feminist approach because empowering women and girls is the best way to lift communities out of poverty and build more peaceful, inclusive, and a prosperous world. For us, Brazil is a very important bilateral, regional, and multilateral partner. The connections forged between our citizens, between our businesses and civil society continue to keep our relationship vibrant and moving forward. And we look forward to enhancing our ongoing engagement with Brazil and continue to build the two-way relationship with federal, state, and municipal interlocutors. As part of our inclusive trade agenda, Canada is dedicated to achieving gender parity to ensure that everyone in society reaps the benefits of our trade relationships domestically and abroad. Canada promotes initiatives that lead to increased participation of Canadian women-owned businesses in the global marketplace through programs that promote and support supplier diversity. And as mentioned, Canada is pursuing a feminist foreign policy, which extends to natural resources management. Canada's feminist approach promotes empowerment and inclusion, strengthens institutions and frameworks for responsible resource governance, and protects human rights defenders. Applying a feminist approach to the natural resource sector includes supporting women's economic empowerment through diversification of economic opportunities, supporting women's local businesses, and strengthened women's influence across natural resource value chains, and empowering women, Indigenous peoples, and other marginalized groups to participate in meaningful consultation and to be part of decision-making in their communities and in their countries. It was released in 2019, but just to reference the Canadian Minerals and Metals Plan, which outlined a vision, principles, and the 6 strategic directions to solidify Canada's position as a global mining leader, including the need to take action on gender equality. The plan established ambitious targets and identified strategies to achieve specific goals, including increasing the representation of women in the industry to 30% by 2030, compared to 16% where it was in 2016, advancing Indigenous participation, particularly of Indigenous women, and supporting workers in maintaining their skills up to date for modern operations. Natural Resources Canada has been working collaboratively with provinces and territories on a series of CMMP action plans to support a number of initiatives under the plans. And these include advancing pan-Canadian initiatives in partnership with Indigenous business leaders and organizations and provinces and territories to develop a mineral literacy campaign and educational tools that will highlight the variety of career opportunities in the mining sector, disseminating the exploration and mining guide for Aboriginal communities to increase the ability of Indigenous peoples, including Indigenous women, to understand the mineral development cycle and participate in exploration and mining related activities, supporting the Canadian Council for the Advancement of Native Development Officers to help increase the capacity of Indigenous communities to participate in and benefit from economic development activities across the mineral development sequence, and working with the Mining Industry Human Resources Council to both explore mining sector opportunities and to undertake outreach and engagement with stakeholders across Canada through the Gender Equity in Mining Initiative. Canada very much values those organizations that are working to advance gender equality and change harmful social norms and cultural practices, encouraging industry and academic collaboration to ensure that educational programs respond to the job market, and that groups such as Women Mining in Canada can continue with their efforts. Brazil and Canada are both leaders in mining. The sector represents about 4% of GDP and about 20% of exports in both countries. Canadian trade and investment relations with Brazil continue to grow, and the mining sector remains a key element in our bilateral relationship. Brazil is also a significant investor in Canada, including in mining, while Canadian companies have a large presence in the Brazilian mining sector with assets over $11 billion. Canadian mining companies are responsible for 70% of Brazil's gold production and 100% of vanadium production. Brazil is also engaged in promoting the participation of women in the Brazilian mining sector. The Brazil Day event at PDAC last year featured the launch of the action plan for the advancement of women in the Brazilian mining industry. The action plan challenged mining employers to take meaningful steps to include more women and achieve new business benefits, and to engage women in local communities at all stages of the mining cycle. Canada's Trade Commissioner Service team in Brazil has been working very closely with Women in Mining Canada and Brazil's Mining Association in support of the Women in Mining Brazil movement to increase and strengthen women's roles in the mining sector. Established mining companies are well positioned to show leadership in the implementation of the plan and help convince other companies to work towards greater diversity and inclusion in the mining sector. And after 1 year of its launch, 16 mining companies in Brazil have signed on to the action plan. The work currently undertaken by Women in Mining Brazil to develop the performance indicators for the action plan will be key to helping companies strive for greater inclusion. All actors need to work towards transforming this sector to ensure it works for women. Women's voices and leadership in the management of this sector is central, particularly as we work together to build back better from the pandemic. In conclusion, by attracting more women to mining, the industry will increase its talent pool. By creating a culture in which women, men, and gender diverse people can thrive, we will enrich our diversity of thought and help improve innovation. In the end, the sector and society as a whole will benefit. Thank you very much for your attention today. I'm looking forward to a great panel, and thank you again for inviting me. Obrigado.
Thank you so much for being here today and for your words and for all the support that you've showed us into all these initiatives that we're coordinating as well. So thank you very much for your partnership. I would like to invite now Jamile Cruz, CEO at IND 101, Chair of the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, board member of Women in Mining Brazil and Women in Mining Canada, to take the stage. She will do a short presentation on the first year of the Women in Mining Brazil and moving towards sustainable progress. And after that, she will moderate a very interesting discussion on successful projects on gender inclusion and next steps. So Jamile, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for all your partnership. Congratulations again on all your achievements and the awards and the recognition, well deserved, and welcome. The stage is yours.
Thanks, Carol. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for opening the space again for Women in Mining Brazil. For us, it's very important to show this connection with organizations like BCCC, and taking from Flavio and Michael, like, I think I can make my presentation very short because they covered most of it already. It shows to me the engagement of the Canadian government and IBRAM, because they're like, on top of everything that's going on, they're working with us in every step, and none of these projects we're talking about here today, the existence of Women in Mining Brazil, the action plan, the junction, right? The working together of Women in Mining Canada, government, and Women in Mining Brazil and mining associations wouldn't happen without the support of all these organizations. So thank you so much. To start, just to ground all of us, the objective of Women in Mining Brazil is really to expand and strengthen the women's participation in the mining sector. Tons of research out there shows the benefits of gender inclusion in many sectors, including mining. There are reports from IDP, the Development Bank. Last week, I was very fortunate to participate on a 2-day conference put together by the World Bank, discussing the participation of women in mining, looking at the various aspects that still needs improvement. We're here because change needs to be made, and there's still a lot of challenge that we have to face. Yes, we've come a long way. We have this space now. We have companies very seriously taking action, but we still have to do a whole lot to get to the place that we aim to get. So our value proposition is really to create this respectful workplace, respectful environment where everybody, independent of their professional background, can be their best, be their authentic selves, and participate and engage in the industry, where mining companies, suppliers, and everybody who participates in our supply chain actually develops this culture that we communicate and we engage with our communities and really enable their participation in these mining companies that we're so proud of having, and also where equal participation of women is seen on where we demand that expertise. So engineering, geology, sustainability, and all the areas that we judge so important for our industry. Just the timeline here, we already heard about parts of this timeline from the two previous speakers, but just so you can put a picture to it, we started at PDAC in 2019. That's when really we connected with IBRAM. We talked to Ajimbi as well, and we said, we need this. Let's connect with Women in Mining Canada. Let's kick off this project. And that's when it started. After that session, the women from Brazil who were here, who were in Toronto at the time, and saw that moment, really decided to engage. And from there, this whole conversation about setting up the movement in Brazil really kicked off. So then from there, workshops, we did a workshop really looking into the action plan from Women in Mining Canada. Consul Eveline, who was a big part of this engagement, she used to say that we're trying to tropicalize the action plan from Canada, taking a little bit of the snow off of it and ensure that it was fit for purpose for Brazil. So we did that, and we continued the engagement. So IBRAM really opened the space for women in mining to have the discussions. We had a 3-hour panel in Expos IBRAM where we're really trying to engage the industry, brought a whole lot of leaders to the table, and that's when we really found that momentum. Moving from there, as was already mentioned, we then set it up as an official movement, Women in Mining Brazil. Our home in Brazil, it's the Mining Hub, which is a hub of innovation for the mining industry in Brazil. And then at PDAC last year, we had that moment of really starting to talk about the action plan as a material, as a tool, a strategic tool that the companies could use to really figure out how to do better and how to start moving in their organizations if they hadn't started that movement yet. So we had, I actually just did an event this morning with Nexa. Tito Martins from Nexa Resources was there with us. He signed, he was the first person to sign the letter together with Vanadium, Largo Resources. And then right after, unfortunately, we got into the situation with the pandemic, so we couldn't do the launches in the cities that we wanted in Brazil. But we managed to have a very successful YouTube event with over 1,000 people connecting and watching the official launch in Brazil. We also launched, with support from the Government of Canada, NCCBC, the English version. So now we can really share that with other women in mining groups across the globe and ensure that we're engaging with not only the companies operating in Brazil, but with companies across the globe who operate in the sector. Currently, so Expos IBRAM last year, the same space was open. We talked about one of the strategies, which was the Respectful Workplace one, brought companies to really discuss policies that they are operating on, did the launch of a campaign to end violence against women. And then late last year, we started this partnership with EY, who is supporting Women in Mining Brazil as well. And this partnership was really to set the indicators. My engineering background doesn't let me walk away without the numbers. And to me, from the beginning, and that was something that was the formation of Women in Mining Brazil, and I think all the directors are very connected with this idea, together with all the support system we have, that we needed indicators, we need to measure the progress, we need to understand how we're doing and understand the gaps so we could continue to build actions and build partnership with companies that could support to close these gaps. Right now, I think one update to what Michael Grant said, we actually have today 20 companies who signed. We're seeing this movement to continue to pick it up, and now we're seeing suppliers joining us as well. And we're preparing to launch this very exciting report, which will be the first annual report with the list of indicators for each one of these strategies and how the companies are really doing measuring against these indicators. So just a little bit more before we move into this panel. If you haven't seen the action plan yet, the action plan is built with this idea of showing the business case, building up on these strategies with very specific actions that companies can take, how to engagement, how to create the culture to really have this discussion. There is a QR code there on the screen. So if you have your phones, you can always open the camera, scan it. It's going to take you directly to the PDF that you can download and read at your own time. So please, if you haven't seen it, take the time to go and engage. And I just want to thank all the companies all the organizations who are listed at the bottom here, who are really supportive of us putting this material together. Again, on the 8 strategies, they are 5 strategies that were part of the Women in Mining Canada Action Plan. The Women in Mining National Action Plan was put together with Status of Women Canada. They founded, so the government of Canada was behind it and really supportive of putting something like that together. We took it to Brazil. We adjust a little bit, but we also created 3 new strategies, looking a little bit outside and the impact of the mining companies in the community. So we look at investments, and taking away from the session that happened just before us was the ESG discussion, right? And when we look at ESG, when we look at governance, social, environment, we really need to look into the overall impact of mining organizations in the industry. So we added one to talk about supplier diversity that we're going to touch a little bit more a little later today. The investment on the women in the communities we operate, and also how we need to engage better with educational systems and really create the workforce of the future, and for sure have the gender lenses on it. Our main tool to engage with organizations is our call to action. We did put a call together with IBRAM, sent to organizations to ask them to engage the CEOs to sign a letter saying, yes, we understand the importance of this, and we're going to work with you to implement actions. As you can see, I would say this is working. We have, as I said, 20 companies who are working with us. You can see the companies here. We have 3 of them in the panel today, talking to us and explaining a little bit of how that's working. Some of them are not representing their Brazilian operations, they're representing the Canadian or global operations, but I get the feeling that they all have seen parts of it and can get a feeling of how that's really helping their organizations to move forward. Again, just to beat on the annual report, we're getting ready, doing all the analytics, looking at the information that was proposed and validated with the signature, the companies who signed the agreement. So we did a full workshop, and that workshop essentially enabled us to get to this point where we're almost to publish this report, and hopefully these indicators will continue to help the companies to get to this stage. So it was a very important moment to us, and we're very excited to show that work. If you have questions, I know this was quite fast, but engage, please go to Women in Mining Brazil. So it's winbrazil.org. You can also scan here my QR code, connect directly with me through BCCC, through Women in Mining Brazil. I'm available. Let's have a conversation. If you want to sign and continue to work with us or start to work with us, please come join us. I think it's a movement that can make a huge difference, and we want to work with you to make that happen. So now I wanted to invite 4 amazing leaders who are going to join me to talk a little bit about what's going on in the industry and within their organizations. I'm going to call up all of them so they can turn on their cameras and microphones to join us. And then we're going to go through a set of questions. If you have questions and you want to put into the chat box, Carolina is probably going to put her hands up and let us know that the questions are there. So first, she already turned on the camera, so I'll talk to Fran Hansen. She was actually there last year at PDAC as well, participating in our session. She was in the panel. So thanks for joining us again, Fran. We're excited to have you. She's the head of people at Vale Base Metals, but I'm sure she's very connected with everything that's happening in Canada and Brazil. I also want to call Kathleen Grandy. She's the Vice President, Human Resource for Kinross Gold Corporation. Kinross is also a very big partner of Women in Mining Brazil. As Flavio said at the beginning, Ana Cunha won this year, in 2020, the top 100 most influential women in mining from WIM UK. So we're very excited to have her always influencing and helping us with the actions from in Brazil. Also, Renata Penha, who is the Chief Counsel at Nexa. Nexa Resources, under the leadership of Tito Martins and the whole team, have been doing amazing work. Always impressed when I join the conversations, from supplier diversity to the engagement of people to development. It's quite impressive, the work that Nexa is taking on and supporting us in this place. And also, last but not least, Cristina Bertoni, who is the Vice President, Global Procurement at Yamana. She has a lot to say and to share with us about Yamana's connection with their Themis project, how they're sponsoring the project and making things happen for women entrepreneurs like me and like many others who are part of their Themis project. So welcome to the conversation. Please turn on your cameras, join us, and we're gonna talk a little bit. Let me turn off my screen so it's just our faces. So just Renata, which you cannot see you. So, or I don't know if it's on my side, but there we go. So Renata, maybe I'll start with you. As we said in the presentation, Nexa was one of the first to sign the agreement to implement the actions for women in mining Brazil. We see the actions on a daily basis. Tito is very present. He was part of my session at PDAC this year as well. Talk to us a little bit about this movement happening within the organization. You set metrics back in 2017 and you're continuing to move towards your goals. Share a little bit more with us of what's going on at Nexa.
Sure, that would be my pleasure. Thank you. First of all, thank you everyone for this great opportunity to talk about equality in the mining industry. And really congratulations to PDAC's team for including this matter in the agenda. I think this will be an awesome opportunity to exchange experiences, to talk a little bit more about what Nexa has been doing, and also to learn from other companies in this matter. So the question was how Nexa has been engaged since we signed the Women in Mining commitment letter last year at PDAC. And what I can say is that for us at Nexa, the inclusion of women is really a business priority. And it is totally connected to our current mission, which is building the mining of the future. And we are working every single day to be this company of the future. And part of our goal is actually to create a more diverse and inclusive environment in the mining sector. So we all know that a person that feels part of a community and is well accepted the way he or she is, this person will work happier, will deliver more, will be more efficient to the company. And all of that brings value to the company. And of course, therefore, the company will be better valued by investors as well. So we strongly believe that having a representative number of women, not only in the administrative areas, but also in positions that are considered unconventional for this gender, will certainly promote a broader and a more inclusive vision in our work teams and abroad with our stakeholders and our supply chain as well. And we also know that to achieve this, we need to work together and create environments where diverse is a value that actually brings a positive transformation in our people's lives and in the society in general. So in terms of gender equality, we, as I said, we signed the Women in Mining commitment letter last year during the PDAC section. But throughout 2020, we also engaged in the Women in Mining in Peru, which recently appointed Mr. Ricardo Porco, who is our CEO at Nexa Peru, as an ambassador for the He for She program that is promoted by the United Nations. So just talking a little bit what we are doing internally to achieve this, I'm very glad to say that it's our human that are spearheading the change at Nexa. And we started by making up this Empodera group, which is translated by empowerment group. And together with many volunteers, we are tackling the challenges of creating a more diverse environment. And we also have a strong plurality program that focuses on 5 pillars and involves basically everybody, every woman in the company. This Empodera group is where the actions are proposed, not only for increasing the female representation, but also to develop women's careers, as this is also a priority for us. And these 5 main pillars that we have from Empodera group are basically, number 1 is to create a safer environment, both in the physical and emotional sense. And this is basically to provide equal working conditions for women and men. For instance, we adapted the whole infrastructure of our operations to serve a large population of women. We renovated women's restrooms and locker rooms and dorms to make their environment more pleasant and safe for our female employees. We also are strengthening our ethical line. We have created a joint committee for sexual harassment, where we discuss important issues such as harassment, machismo, etc. We are analyzing the current percentage of the wage gap between men and women, and we are establishing a target to reduce this gap. The second pillar is we are paying much attention for the signs and symbols of gender inclusion. So we continue to map opportunities to create improvements in our plans. For example, as I said, in the dorms, bathrooms, or the work equipment to assure that they are proper for humans' use. Number 3 of these pillars is it's our supplier diversity that targets our entire supply chain. I'll talk a little bit about that deeper later on, but it's basically to encourage our suppliers to have the same position as us in terms of gender equality through giving them awards and strengthening our partnerships with whom has this as a policy and as a priority. Pillar number 4 is the focus on women in our communities, also aiming to have an impact on the communities that we are inserted, and we are encouraging the social and economic development of women in these locations. And how we do that, we map local projects in which we can become involved, or we simply create new projects where there are none yet. And the 5th pillar, it's related to maternity care. We have many initiatives in this front. We created roundtable discussions among mothers. We are mapping all mothers at risk or with any kind of difficulties during the pandemic, and we are studying alternatives for them. We have breastfeeding centers in all companies' units. We are very sensitive and work towards empathy of our leaders that have women on motherhood. We also provide physiological support to mothers during and after their maternity leave. And we had recently a very nice achievement that we expanded the maternity leave in Peru, that according to their law, the Peruvian law, is of 98 days, and we recently approved its extension for 180 days to be equal to our Brazilian practice. So still talking about the Empodera group, and just a reminder, this morning we had the Empodera group promoting a digital event called Mining Like a Woman, with a massive attendance of women and men. And they launched many initiatives that will take place during this next month as part of the celebration of the International Women's Day. And Jamile was there as well. She was invited to the event to explain the Women in Mining initiatives in Brazil and in Canada. So thank you again, Jamile, on behalf of Nexa for your participation. And finally, now giving some statistics so far that is happening in Nexa. First, where are our women? We are encouraging female participation at all levels. We are increasing the perception of their talent and ensuring that leaders often demonstrate that diversity and gender equality are essential elements for the company. And we also know that there are many highly qualified female people performing non-conventional tasks. So we are very much looking forward to find these people and to replicate this successful cases in our operations. An example of how we are encouraging gender equality in is our Aripuanã project in Brazil, a greenfield project. We are in phase of construction. And our goal is to start operations with 50% of our workers being women. So we know that this initiative is well above the global industry average, but we are optimists. We have already a good indicator. Almost 55% of the students in our local training program are women. Another of our commitments is to ensure the presence of women in the final stages of our selection process. And we also seek to encourage the presence of women in the succession group for leadership positions as well. In one of our smelters in Brazil, in Três Marias, we are providing a free professional course for women on industrial and zinc metallurgy. And the idea is also to increase the representation of women in the selection process there as well. In one of our mines in Brazil, Vazante mine, we completed the latest internship selection process, and 70% of the positions were filled by women. And still talking about commitments, we have a public commitment in our annual report to reach the goal of 20% of women in the organization by 2025. We are currently with 14% of female staff. And this year, as part of our ESG's strategic goals, we are aiming to increase this participation of women in company for 16%. We are also targeting to increase women in leadership positions to 25% by 2025. So overall, I think Nexa is definitely a global partner of women in mining. And Nexa is reaffirming its commitment with the Brazilian and the Peruvian mining sector every day. And we are very focused not only on the opportunity to attract women, but also to retain them and to capitalize on their skills and to recognize their values. So when we look back, we are very proud to see what has been done so far, but we are also very much aware that there are various challenges still lying ahead, but we are confident that we are taking the steps towards growth and transformation in this topic.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Renata. I think that was like a very detailed explanation, even of the action plan, which I appreciate. So for those who haven't read the action plan yet, I believe the pillars that Renata explained are very aligned with the strategies in the action plan. So go research if your company is not already structured with their gender inclusion program. It's a great way of showcasing how to use that information and how to step it up essentially and put the building blocks that you need to put it together. But I'll take something that Renata said on the target setting, and I'll move into Fran, because Vale in 2019 announced the goal to double its female workforce by 2030. From 13 to 26%, and now also the presence in leadership roles from 12 to 20%. And knowing of the sessions that I've been doing in the past few weeks around indicators, KPIs, the question about setting targets or not, it's always a question I receive, no matter where I'm presenting. So Fran, I've talked to you about this last year, so I love that you're here and you can maybe explain the approach that was taken throughout Vale as this global organization to set those targets and how to achieve results and what you're doing to get there. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, and thank you again for inviting me to be part of this this event. I can't believe it's already been a year. It's totally crazy. And thank you, Renata, for sharing everything that you guys are doing. That's just fantastic, all the work that's happening. Specific to Vale in December of 2019, we were very deliberate in terms of declaring to the market and to the world our intention to achieve a particular target. And I'm kind of with you too, Jamili. I'm not overly a fan of targets, but given the fact that it was 2019 and we did not have a presence of women in our workforce in any way, shape, or form, I think it was a necessary step in order to focus and to reinforce our commitment. So to me, it wasn't so much about a target around a measurement. It was a target to start to drive mindset. And we arrived at that number first through some very deliberate workforce planning, a workforce planning process, just to understand what was our turnover, what's the future expansion in various countries in which we operate. And so how aggressive can we be, and how quickly can we accelerate in expanding our diversity within Vale in particular, starting with women. And I have to say, it's one of Vale's strengths, sometimes an overused strengths, is the ability to make things happen and to get it done. Once we set our mind to it, we go. And in just a year, so in 2020, we had an incredible year in terms of commitment, focus, and attention. We actually have achieved, we've gone from 13% to 17% of women in our workforce. And a lot of that's been driven at the entry level because we've been very deliberate. That's where we have our recruitment opportunities. And so we were very deliberate in terms of talent acquisition, in terms of attraction campaigns and programs dedicated to and focused in on women. And we were also not shy about declaring our commitment that yes, we will be bringing more women into our organization, to the mining industry, because if we're to deliver on our purpose of improving life and transforming the future together, then we need to do it together with all the diversity in terms of the communities that we work and serve in. And so we set about a whole very ambitious agenda, from targeted campaigns from a talent acquisition perspective, developing kind of non-miners, so taking the time to invest in training sites or underground training mines whereby we could train and develop women so that they have the experience to be able to enter into the mining space. And we were very deliberate about making sure that every opportunity that came up, we had a diversity lens around that. Similarly, we had to prepare the organization, and we're still on that journey. So a lot of education training, starting with the executive leadership, down through the organization around what is diversity, what is inclusion, making sure that we were creating work environments. So investing in infrastructure, specifically, same things, washrooms, PPE, uniforms, underground environments, and ensuring that we have an environment to women. And we set about some very deliberate training as well. In base metals, we began our journey around becoming a gender intelligent organization. And sorry, I was my internet. My apologies. So we began our journey of really understanding, as men and women, what are the complementary skills that we bring to an organization. And one of the complementary skills that's critical for Vale, as we strive to become the benchmark in safety, is the fact that women tend to be much more risk averse. And men, in particular in mining, I heard you talk about the machismo aspect, Renata, are more willing to take risks. So having more women can help balance and create and accelerate our safety agenda, as well as one small example. And, I think one of the interesting journeys is we've kind of dug in to make sure in particular that the work environment is a safe place for women. We have found that it should be, these conditions that exist are not acceptable for anybody, regardless of gender. Everybody should have a safe place. Everybody should be free from harassment and bullying. Everybody should have proper facilities underground, whether it's proper lunchrooms or proper washrooms. And that basically, I think it's a very true saying that when women rise, we all rise. And so that's what we're seeing is in tackling this and beginning to focus first on gender, we're revealing a whole host of situations that we need to change for everybody, not just women.
That's perfect. And just to go back into the not being a fan of targets, I wouldn't be a fan of targets if we could actually make these changes without targets, but we're clearly not getting anywhere without them. So I am becoming a fan of targets, but I'm also a big fan of indicators. And I think indicators are not just the representation of the participation, right? I think we need to look into how are we moving our systems, and as both of you have mentioned already, like, are our facilities ready to receive women? Are they safe? Like, do we create an environment that people are actually feeling healthy from a mental perspective as well to participate? So moving to Kathleen and talking a little bit about Kinross, that understanding of inclusion and diversity as a whole and the participation of women, we always say that it starts at the top, right? It starts with leadership really engaging and understanding. I think the signature on the Brazilian side of the action plan and moving towards really understanding what are the changes, what's the framework to work through the organization is happening. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's happening within your Canadian organizations and also across the globe, and how that's being seen in terms of the gender inclusion operating everywhere for Kinross.
Sure, yeah, happy to. And again, to echo everyone else, thank you for inviting me to this. I'm quite passionate about this topic and certainly happy to speak on it. And for Kinross, one of our big focuses in particular over the last year has really been on the I side of D&I, and really looking to create that inclusive culture and teach our leaders what that means and what it really looks like. So we've been doing a lot of education. There's the regular education, I think, that a lot of people do around unconscious bias and how does that look, and let's show the business case. And I think the business case is very difficult to argue against, and I'm not sure that many people would argue against it. To me, the biggest thing that you need to educate people on, and particularly leadership, is around where is the problem within our organization? Because you can say, like, yes, I believe in diversity and inclusion and it's going to be great, but not everyone sees the issues. And what I find, and I've worked at Kinross for a long time, and Kinross is a pretty good organization overall on this front, but let's face it, we all still have work to do. And there's plenty of times where if I experience something, it's hard for someone who's not experiencing the same thing to see that it exists. And when you do experience it, it's hard to prove, right? And so you get into this thing, you're not watching people being literally held back where it's obvious. You're seeing all of these little ways and subtle ways that women and certainly other minority groups are not at the same level as other people. And so I find that to be a very important part of advancing the journey, is to really get people to take that accountability. Like, and I've had moments myself where I think to myself, wow, I used to think that way. Like, now that I've lived 15 years in the workforce and 13 of those in mining, and you really do get a bit of a different perspective. So I think it's really critical to be educating leadership around being able to recognize those issues and holding themselves accountable and holding the organization accountable. And my big thing that I would like to see us start doing, and we've started having the conversations and the more real conversations over the last year or so, which I think is amazing, and there's lots of appetite for it. But the next thing, and you've all spoken about, sort of, you have to take action too. So now it's, okay, we have to start calling this out. We can't just say, oh, these things happen and we've got to try to work on it. Like, no, you got to start calling it out in the moment. Hey, That was, Barbara mentioned that idea 2 days ago. Like, it's not Jimmy's idea, that was Barbara's idea. Or, hey, it seems like, you know, Susan's getting talked over a lot in meetings, or we're not really listening to her ideas the same way. And so that's for me the next step in creating the culture of inclusion and a really deep understanding of what that looks like and what it doesn't look like, is really how I see ultimately getting that leadership buy-in and that cultural change that's going to be needed to support the increasing diversity that we're going to be seeing with target setting and other things.
I love that. Thanks, Kathleen. I always finish my presentations with a slide of like 5 inclusive behaviors that you can start doing right now. And one of them, it's like, if you like the TTC saying, right? For those from Toronto, at the Metro in Toronto, you hear the voice coming over saying, if you see something, say something. I think we all have a responsibility to change the world around us, definitely within our organizations, within our families. So yes, if you see something, you already recognize that that's associated with a bias, associated with a discrimination way that we operate based on our cultures, based on what we've learned, say something, start that process, right? With yourself, with others. But thanks, Kathleen. So Christina, I'd like to go to you and talk a little bit about strategy 6 of our action plan, which is essentially the strategy around supplier diversity. All the work that we've done in Brazil with Association of the Government of Canada, BCCC always helps us on that discussion a lot as well. It really looks into creating the space for entrepreneurs, small and medium-sized business, and in very specific here to this conversation, business led by women, because I think there's way too many reports out there showcasing what our economy could benefit from really investing on women-led businesses. So Yamana actually joined as a sponsor of their Themis project, and Heather will be speaking a little bit more about it a little later today. But talk to us how Yamana got there. How do you see supplier diversity within your supply chain, and what would you say to other supply leaders who are thinking about the subject?
Hi, everybody. It's really a great pleasure to be part of this panel with all of these brilliant women bringing different perspectives. And it's really a subject that is very close to my heart. I'm a Brazilian woman working in Canada. I have, experienced different cultures, and I'm very, very happy to be here today. So let me talk to you a little bit about Yamana, then I put into perspective where the supply chain comes into place. So I joined Yamana 4 years ago, and Yamana is being in this transformation journey, as you would say, overall. It's not only for diversity and inclusion, but other aspects. So as everybody says and talks about the diversity, inclusion, it always starts at the top. I think I'm very proud just to share with all of you that Yamana is really walking the talk on that sense. So currently Yamana has 40% of its board members are women with women representation. And on the senior management, we are around 26%. So I think that there is not a better way to do any change when you include the diverse team, include, as Kathleen was really saying, that was really touching me, that we feel the experience, we understand where the sensitivities are, where the changes need to occur. And we are, committed, accounted, and part of this transformation at Yamana. So Peter Marrone, Danielle Rossini are firm believers that we need inclusion, we need diversity, not only gender, but all kinds of diversity. It's very fun to participate in some Yamanas, especially in our virtual meetings, and see all the different accents. We have people from all over, different nationalities, different cultures, ethnics, everything. So it's a very inclusive company, okay? So I think all the ground, all the structure, the basis to be successful in inclusion and have the discussion is being set by the top management. So it's really now up to us, right, to make the changes. So being, the head and responsible for procurement, I have also my part to do it. Yeah, my responsibility and where I take accountability for. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the Artemis and our experience. So as we were, doing this advancement with regards to diversity at Yamana, we said, okay, we need to do something about diversity in the supply chain as well. And the first focus that we had was really local suppliers. So the inclusion of local suppliers in the community and how we deal with them, how we make sure they have a competitive, a fair chance to compete, how they have a competitive advantage. We need to keep in mind that procurement is based, the basis of procurement is really to adhere to best practices, to be compliant with Anti-Bribery and Corruption Act, to avoid personal preference, to respect business ethics and adhere to human rights. But at the same time, you have a challenge of how do you put that into perspective and have smaller businesses competing with well-established large business that we have in the mining market, yeah? So when you look at the profile of these women-owned businesses, they play in a different layer of this well-established market. They are smaller companies where sometimes financially they cannot prove themselves to be so strong or have, a lot of customers, a lot of history. So we need to provide to them a competitive opportunity to show their business and to add value to the mining sector. So it all started, Heather met our Senior Vice President Operations and shared with him the idea of Artemis, with all of these competent women. And he came to talk to me. And he said, Chris, I met this fabulous woman and she has this crazy idea. What do you think? I said, well, let's look into it. And he was really a strong supporter. So what we did in order to start the business was we held some sessions with some of these business-owned group. And they had a chance to show to our operations team, exploration team, what kind of competence they were bringing to the table, what innovation they were bringing to the table. And so I thought about it and I said, okay, we have a pre-qualification process because in order to be a supplier for Yamana, you need to go through a pre-qualification process with regards to all that I just discussed with you guys, age-sec, business ethics, some financial background. So I just want to share with you that our learnings is that one of the things that hinders us to offer opportunity on a compliant way for these smaller businesses is that we have a one-size-fits-all pre-qualification processes. So what we did is that, and also it's not only for women-owned business. If you think about our local suppliers, they fall into the same category. So what we did is we tailored our pre-qualification processes into 3 different stages or levels. So they can really be part of our database, of our suppliers database, be qualified and compete on the same level as a larger company. Yeah. So we use a lot of the innovation that they bring to the table, all of the simpler way of doing business. Yeah. Because the advantage that this type of business bring to the mining company and other sectors is really, they bring a different perspective on how we do business, how can we simplify, and they're very competent. They're extremely qualified professionals. And I agree with Fran with regards to quota. So I'm very proud to say that these ladies from Artemis and other ladies that with which we are cooperating in the local business we have where we operate, they're highly qualified. They're highly competent. So I think it's really a win-win situation. So it's really something that is complementing Yamana's journey into this inclusion that I just spoke about, and I'm very happy. And Heather, she really deserves this recognition, this award. It's a brilliant, she's a brilliant individual. The way she did to organize this initiative, to the way she attracts the people, and the way she's really selling everything, it's really amazing. So it was really not only personally that we could tailor something that is very inclusive and have a very solid process and robust process, at the same time providing Yamana with competitive advantages and with our compliance side, but also meeting great people. So it's been a pleasure, this journey.
Thank you so much, Christina. I am part of Artemis, and I've been there in one of the meetings with Yamana, so it's quite exciting to see Yamana taking the leap, joining in, yes, and turning to what you said, a crazy project into a very viable, feasible, very efficient project that can help not only women entrepreneurs, but bring innovation to the mining companies, right? I think that's the goal, and that's what we're starting to see. So very exciting to see that.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Just the last word, I just would like to congratulate my colleagues here for their presentation and different points and different perspectives that we discussed. For sure, we learned a lot with each other. So it was really great being part of it and meeting all of you, really.
Thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, the time passed too fast, and we definitely wanted to create the space at the end for Heather to be able to present a little bit more of their themes. So maybe in these last 5 minutes of panel, first, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here. Like, we appreciate your engagement, your leadership, and you being part of this team that's working to change the culture of the mining industry and getting us to a better place. Maybe I'll just go around and give a minute to each one of you for you to really look into the future and really think and tell us, all of us who are watching here today, on what do you see as the next step, not only for your organization, but for the industry, for us to continue to progress and make strides towards being more inclusive. Maybe I'll start with you, Renata.
Sure, thank you very much, Jamile. And likewise, as Christina was saying, it's been such a pleasure to hear everything that you ladies are bringing to us. And particularly, it was very interesting for me to hear Christina talking about the supply chain program they have in Yamana. We also just launched a similar program, the supply chain, the plural supply chain program at Nexa. And that was launched basically with the aim of seeking to promote diverse, inclusive environments and female entrepreneurship in our supply chain as well. We truly believe that we can promote our best practices and learn from other companies, so we all together may contribute somehow to the mining sector. So thank you, Christina, and all other colleagues for bringing this kind of examples that we will certainly use in our companies internally as well.
Thanks, Renata. Fran, maybe you're next.
Sure. First of all, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I can't believe how fast the time's gone, because I'd like to hang out all afternoon with you guys. So, you know, I think as you might remember, Jamile, I actually am not from mining. So I grew up in telecom and retail. And so this has been a whole new world for me. And sometimes mining gets a really bad reputation in terms of, you know, we just take and extract and move on. And I think what's fascinating is that by becoming a much more inclusive industry, and for Vale, an organization, we have the opportunity to change the world and to influence and become just better human beings and a better humanity. in particular as, you know, the role that mining plays in the world. And so, so yeah, I think, you know, for me, it's, yes, it's kind of about what we need to achieve at Vale, but it is fundamentally, we have the opportunity to shape and change the world in terms of just being better human beings.
That's perfect. Amen to that. Kathleen, you're next.
Sure. So I really think, and this is something that was in the action plan, it's really, we need to be engaging with the men, specifically on gender, and we need to engage in other areas as well. Like I, as a white person, need to engage in the fight for racial equality, and we need men to engage in the fight for gender equality. And I have men who, when we do training or we're having discussions, and they'll say things like, oh, I kind of feel a bit weird talking on this topic. It's not really mine. And my response to them is, no, your voice is the most powerful, because you're not standing to personally benefit in a direct way. And your voice, therefore, speaking to why this is important on an individual and business and societal level, actually carries more weight. And we need more of those voices in the conversation. And we need more of men for the fight for gender equality, white people for the fight for racial equality. We need those people standing up, and we need those people being part of this next phase of pushing things forward.
That's perfect. I wish we had more time so we could talk about Kinross signing with Black North and talking about race as well. So maybe I'll talk to Carolina and get this in the agenda for our next session. But thank you so much for being here. And just a quick anecdote on that one. I used to work very closely with the CEO of a company I was the inclusion diversity leader for, and we went into a big event full of women. And he turned into me and he's like, this is a bit scary. I was like, welcome to my everyday. That's how I feel about walking to your meetings on a daily basis. So just like put yourself in that position now, really understand what we're trying to do in here. So yeah, those moments are important too. So thanks. Christina, and we'll finish with you before we pass to Heather.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I will play my Brazilian side now. I'm very proud as well what Sandro is doing in Jacobina and in Argentina as well. And I think for the future, we have created the Women's Forum, a sustainability forum in Jacobina, and there are many, many things being discussed. And I think, as all of you have said, my wish and my hope and my dream is that those dialogues continue and that we can really build a sustainable future. Yeah, we all have families, and also we have a great responsibility to what we are, to our legacy and the examples we're setting. And I'm sure that with all of these initiatives that we have spread around the mining companies, at Yamana, everybody, everywhere, I think we're in the right track to go. So that's
awesome. Thank you so much to each one of you, every one of you. I'm gonna finish now by calling Heather Gamble. She's gonna be talking to us about the Artemis project. And Carol, I'm stealing your.
Can I just, I'm just gonna say that I echo your words, and yes, I wish we could spend the whole afternoon together, and count on us to put together a lot of other events to keep discussing such important issues. I don't want to steal from Heather, so I'm going. Heather.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. A little bit of I really don't have much to say because you all said it so elegantly. And first of all, I'd like to express, similar to every single woman that has expressed opinions and thought leadership on this panel, as well as Michael and Flavio, is that it is our time. It's our time. And when I think about, certainly in Canada, over, well, let's take us back, 2006, there were 14%. 14% of the workforce in mining was female. At that time, it was primarily administrative and culinary, they called it. So now, 16 years later, we've got about 16% of workforce that is women in mining in Canada. And listening to Flavio, we're very similarly situated in Brazil. So my point here is that it took 16 years to move us 2%. from all of the initiatives, the efforts that are being undertaken, and you on this panel are leading, there's absolutely, positively no question that we will reach certainly the goal that Michael expressed of wanting the Canadian goal is to have 30% representation by 2030. So we have 9 years. So I'm saying excellent. We've got the women in that are rallied and passionate and purposeful and deliberate and intentional and are doing it. So congratulations to all of us. And there's lots of work ahead, which is really quite exciting. So in terms of Artemis, I'll just quickly share with you where it came from, how it is, and what's next for Artemis. So certainly Artemis Project is a vision. We have our vision. We want to see the mining industry be a world-class contributor to the UN SDG goals by 2030. And I think each of you have said it in your own ways. If it doesn't come out of the ground in a responsible way, it cannot be turned into responsible products. Mining is, in our opinion, the core, a fundamental piece to help and really advance this world in true sustainability. I'm not from mining, I'm from tech and telecom to be more specific. However, about 5 years ago, I started this journey into mining, and I wasn't quite sure myself why I was in mining. And now there's no question. If it doesn't come out of the ground, it cannot be made into responsible products. It is that simple. And that's why I believe we're all here. And much like Fran says, to build a sustainable, purposeful world, prosperous for all. So we're committed to that. What I saw in terms of, I see women entrepreneurs in mining as an untapped channel of innovation. And I'll share with you what I mean. So just very quickly and brief origin story, I started the first women's business accelerator in Canada about 6 years ago. I really wanted to just partner with someone, but I didn't see anything that I felt was required. So I started it up, physical place, space, training, networking, etc. One of our first clients, I met a female engineer in mining, and she wanted to grow her business. We worked together, grew her business more than 200% within an 18-month time span. Along that way, I had the pleasure to meet all these incredible, extraordinary female entrepreneurs in mining. And the talent was too extraordinary, and it was largely untapped. So anyone with an entrepreneurial spirit says, I've got to do something. There's a huge opportunity. Artemis Project was crafted by two individuals, myself and Laura Matola, who was my first mining engineer, who we took her business of, to reach beyond $1 million in revenue. And again, a stat certainly in Canada, less than 1% of female-owned businesses ever reach $1 million in revenue, which is certainly something that we're working on as well. So Laura and I got together and felt like this is what was going on. There's a global rise of female entrepreneurs. It's around the globe. Women in many phases of their career are looking and seeking entrepreneurial opportunities for various reasons. However, many of them stem from the fact that they feel stifled in whatever role they're in. So global rise of women entrepreneurs, these female entrepreneurs are just as innovative, if not more, as all the other entrepreneurs. And I say this and share this because when I first started Artemis, I went to a male leader in mining who had been told is very progressive. And I said, this is my idea. And he said, oh, well, that's a good idea. But who are these women entrepreneurs in mining? And are they in food? They must be in food business. And I said, food is important. However, they do much more. They do more than food. So I could see that there was this bias towards even female entrepreneurs in mining. And what did they do? So I saw the need. The need was certainly from a large company perspective, we saw the need around large companies expressing a desire for more innovation. And innovation is, yes, technology plays a big role in innovation, but innovation is much more than that. And specifically, there's lots of research evidence to indicate that large companies, CEOs were seeking more innovative challenge. It's very difficult for a large company to have an entrepreneurial spirit often inside. And so therefore, CEOs, large companies are looking for new channels of innovation. So connecting the two for the need. And we looked at, well, okay, that's a need. What's going on really with the current state and supply chain? So then our research all indicated that less than 1% of current spend within large company enterprises supply chain is procured with women-owned business. We did some more digging, some more researching, and really saw the opportunity to facilitate outcomes between a group of female entrepreneurs in mining and large mining companies. And certainly with the power of procurement, we received abundance of evidence within the report and driven by the UN Women and the IMF in terms, and just two stats that I'll bring out is that 34% of companies that have women-owned businesses report significant impact on their profitability. So I think you heard many of you were aligning the contributions for women against the business case. So the business case is there, it's been there, and it gets stronger every single day. And yet less than 1% of spending in large company supply chains is procured with women-owned businesses. So again, the entrepreneur sees the opportunity. So what did we do? I'm just going to move beyond this. So the current state, again, it's difficult for mining companies. It's difficult for large companies to work one-on-one with smaller businesses. As you heard Christina thinking and giving a very thoughtful approach and now an analysis in what she did to make it more fair, more equal for the smaller businesses. I often refer, and Jamili knows this, within Artemis, small, we don't say small, we say mighty, because what these entrepreneurs bring to the table is unbelievable value. And I'll express what I mean by that in a minute. So again, it's difficult for large companies to work one-on-one with entrepreneurs, and it's difficult for entrepreneurs to establish relationships with large mining companies. And many of the current supports that I saw at the time were really focused, like all of your work has been spearheading and leading and driving the needle, but much focus on women on boards, senior leadership, the talent pipeline, operational workforce, graduates and interns. So I thought, what can we do for women entrepreneurs in mining? I could see the opportunity. How can we solve? How can we help mining leverage this incredible talent of women entrepreneurs and furthering innovation, sustainability, and diversity? So the idea was to establish a collective pool of entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, support them in capacity building. And what I mean by that is really give them or share strategy with them and other supports to really help them grow their business, introduce them to large mining companies, establish business synergies, and then systematize the process. So today, I'm very, very pleased to share with you today, this is our ecosystem. We started approximately 3.5 years ago. It did take time, like everything takes time. And then over the past 9 months, we've completely altered, exploded, accelerated. And I believe that's largely a result of all the work that each and every single one of you are doing, the torch you're carrying, the impact you're making. And you enabled someone like me and these incredible women to really rise up and now ride that wave. And I'm going to share with you what I mean by that. So today we have over 60 members. We have a number of industry partners, and I would like to recognize Yamana Gold is our founding partner, our founding sponsor. Yamana came on board when nobody else did. They took the risk, they work with us, they co-create, they experiment, and they are an incredible partner, and we co-create outcomes together. A real multi-stakeholder approach with Yamana and with all of our members, our industry sponsors, and our strategic alliances, much like Carolina has invited us, welcomed us, and to partner with BCCC to really bring about change in Brazil. So again, our current member collectives, what do we look like? So we have 900 plus years in the sector. Common cause is around ethical mining. We do 75% of our population of entrepreneurs are engineers, much like Jamili, who have extensive background, phenomenal experience, deep education, and then they had an idea. And they had an idea of something that was disruptive, something that didn't fit in the paradigm they're working in. So they went out and started their own. And so within that, again, we all ascribe and we really, we align all our member businesses to the UN SDGs. Because why? Because we want to see how mining, we want to move this industry to as an instrument to create extreme positive outcomes by 2030 for all. And we see this is a human issue. We're doing what we can to evolve, but it is about humanity. Current state of Artemis member, often people think, well, Artemis members must look like me. They don't. We're diverse. We're that by our nature. We will not leave one woman-owned business behind. And we encourage all of them, women-owned businesses that we come across, to come into our Artemis network and receive support. That's our Artemis team. In terms of now we are certainly established in Brazil. Let me take you there. We have an incredible Brazil lead. And since November, she has been brought on 15 premium female entrepreneurs, 6 leading industry mentor experts to help with her, 3 strategic partnerships, and now moving to solidify our first Brazilian mining company sponsors. An example I just presenting with you, Jamili, who I think most of us are extraordinarily, in awe of, and we got to keep that girl really healthy because she's doing some amazing work and changing the landscape. And so we're very proud of the work within our Artemis community of each and every single one of the entrepreneurs and how they're facilitating change in mining through the various products, services, and solutions that they deliver. We've talked about awards, and thank you very much for the accolades. You're all award winning. You're all taking a risk, and you're all moving this dial. So we're in this together, and that's my message for all of us today. What's next? What do we see as next? There's a lot of work to be done. However, what we see as next is we've got a footing. We are moving from startup to systemic scale. We need to set a target. We need the focus on it because it hasn't been done. As I mentioned initially, it's taken, certainly in Canada, 16 years to move 2%. And we need to do this a lot, in our opinion, a lot faster, smarter. And now we have a lot of, the learnings and how to get there. And I absolutely fundamentally believe we need to set a target. We focus a target, and then we do the work through a multi-stakeholder approach that is collaborative, it's co-creation, it's experimentation, it's ingenuity coming to the table, and it is the relentless pursuit of continuous improvement. And so what we announced on Women's Day on March 8th is the 50 mil movement. And what we mean by that is we're putting a movement together, a movement that Flavio talked about, that Jamili's been instrumental in, all of you panelists, in terms of moving that forward in a movement in Brazil. We likewise are inspired by all of you in the 50 mil movement, meaning we have set a goal for 50 million in procurement with women-owned businesses in mining by 2025. And just to share with you, we did an event the other day where we had panelists speak about what other companies are doing as it relates to these procurement movements and targets. And we're very inspired by the likes of companies like Intel, for example, that they are now to the point, they've been doing this a long time. They up their target every 3 to 5 years, and they've recently just upped it to 500 million in women-owned business procurement by 2025. So I'm confident we will get to 50 million, and I'm confident we'll get there sooner than what we expect. So for all of us, I would like to share with you, this quote goes back to 1926, and it's from someone you're probably all familiar with, known as a radical rule breaker, scientist, physicist, futurist, Tesla. And this reference, the article is referenced here, but he said 1926, women will ignore precedent and startle civilization with their progress. And he goes on to explain that. And I want to say, thank you very much for opening us up to this incredible opportunity that we are all taking our leadership in various ways to drive a more purposeful, intentional, prosperous world for humanity, for all of us, and how we're doing it is through mining. The essence of Artemis. Artemis is a goddess of hunting. Just quick backstory. I had a very large corporate name because I'm from the corporate world way back when. And the women in Artemis said, no, that's really boring. We're not boring. You know, you're making us sound like IBM versus we're the Apple. We're the rebels. And so they said, we want to, you know, they want to be called Artemis. Artemis is the goddess of the hunt, is also oversees nature and oversees children. And so I said, you want me to go talk to primarily male CEOs about a goddess? And they said, absolutely, we do. I took their challenge. I'm extraordinarily pleased to be a part of Artemis Project today. These women have changed and brought this to life. Sponsors like Yamana Gold and recent ones that we are just bringing on board. We're in this together. We're making change together. And we're extremely grateful to have this opportunity and know that we've got a lot of work to do for the next 9 years. So thank you very, very much to each and every single one of you. Your contributions today were so insightful, so educational, informative. And yes, Carolina, we're going to hold you to putting us together in some form of working session in the near future, because this talent here is unbelievable. And thank you very much for giving us you know, the space to talk about women entrepreneurs. It was Jamili that brought that sixth dimension into her action plan. And I believe she was the first one to do that across the globe. So no surprise, she's a change maker and deserves that recognition. Thank you to everybody. Carolina, over to you.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Heather, Jamili. Heather, you're also a change maker since the Women on the Move project, now the Artemis project. I'm very honored to be involved in those initiatives and help do a little part of promoting diversity and inclusion, not only in the mining sector is here, but in general, and bring some of those best practices that are here in Canada a little bit better in established and help move that to Brazil. So I just, I'm sorry about that. So I just want to thank you all for this inspiring conversation. You can count on us to continue the discussion. As Jamili mentioned, and the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, we just launched also on Tuesday, on Monday, on International Women's Day, the Brazil-Canada ESG Committee. So these are two initiatives that are very close to our hearts, and we will continue working with incredible leaders and executives and professionals on those two ideals. So before we go today, I just wanted to share a little bit that we've been hearing for the last 5 days during PDAC. It's all about this new contemporary mining, the new modern mining, the new intelligent mining. And I don't believe it's even possible to do contemporary and intelligent mining without very well-established diversity and inclusion policies, the same way that you can do it without a very strong ESG strategy. So thank you very, very much for all the speakers, for your contribution, for being here today with us. And before we go, I would like to share as well an interview that we did with one of our speakers today, with Fran, head of people at Vale. So I'm going to share with you guys this interview that was recorded last week with Fran. Very inspiring as well, very nice conversation. So stay with us.
So Fran, thanks for joining us for this a bit of a Q&A in preparation for PDAC. Really appreciate your time. And the opportunity to talk about Vale and diversity and inclusion. And so I'd like to start off by asking for you to set the stage in terms of what are Vale's goals around diversity and inclusion.
Brooke, first of all, thank you and pleasure to be here. I can't believe it's been a year since this time, and it was a much different situation last year, but it's great to be here virtually with everybody. And I want to start kind of broadly around what are Vale's goals when it comes to diversity and inclusion. First and foremost, we know that an inclusive work environment and workforce fundamentally creates greater value for the organization in terms of results, but equally, and from my perspective, even more importantly, for the people, the work environments, and their careers. You know, we spend a lot of time at work together. We spend more time at work than we do with our own family, friends, and loved ones. And so it's a real shame to not truly be able to tap into the best of each other. And for Vale, we fundamentally and truly believe that difference makes all the difference. And when we're able to leverage that difference through understanding, we just get to much greater creative and innovative solutions in terms of how we continue to evolve and develop our business. And so that's kind of the broad strokes. Last December in 2019, sorry, it's December 2019, on Vale Day, we were very declarative in terms of our targets, specifically around gender, which I'm happy to report we are well on our way, and we actually surpassed in 2020. So we're very proud of that. And we're also continuing to drive the agenda specific to gender, while also widening our goals, specifically in the space of our Indigenous groups across the world, as well as also turning our attention to visible minorities, and beginning to also focus on people with disabilities in terms of continuing to build our inclusive workforce. Yeah, so I mean, fundamentally, you know, we work across the globe, and we should absolutely be representative of the communities in which we operate, and have a duty to serve in terms of how we continue to improve and evolve the value and quality of lives in the communities in which we work.
We often hear that mining is later to arrive at the conversation, or the conversation points around diversity and inclusion. And so I wanted to ask you, what does this mean to our industry, in terms of the conversations we're now having?
I think it's incredibly important to the industry. Again, it's 2021, and women represent 50% of the population, and by not having that representation, we're missing out. We're missing out from the complementary insights and skills that women bring to organizations, and so fundamentally, we're not achieving and being the best that we can be in the mining industry and at Vale. I think in general terms, mining is lacking in terms of progress. And we've seen some great examples with BHP and what they've been able to drive, not over a decade, but literally over a couple of years. And so that's, we've set our sights on being even better and more effective than what our competitors at BHP have done. And I think it's really important because mining provides great opportunities for employment. There are great jobs, and to not be providing those opportunities to 50% of the population, and in addition to other groups of diversity, we're kind of shrugging our accountability to the communities in which we operate and serve. And so creating ways that we can, first of all, get to young women earlier in their careers, in their school, encourage more STEM participation for young girls in high schools and in universities, and as well as most recently, one of the ways we've been able to bring more women into mining, specifically in Sudbury for our expansion project, is we actually established a training mine. So we took one of our ore bodies that was no longer active, and we've converted that into a training center so that we can actually provide the training and the experience in order to provide women the opportunity to be able to access the world of mining, starting at frontline operations by becoming miners and maintenance people as we continue to expand our operations within the Sudbury Basin.
Thanks. And I understand on top of what's underway in Sudbury, that also in Indonesia and South Atlantic, there's also some focused activity and actions happening in terms of furthering our messages, but also our desire to be a more authentically inclusive and diverse company.
Yeah, we have had some great and actually early success, and Brazil set the bar, bringing in and recruiting women specifically within our frontline operations, and also specific to South Atlantic. We have a large expansion project there as well. And so again, you know, inclusion isn't rocket science, right? But it is intentional. And so what we've seen over the last 18 months is that we as Vale have been incredibly intentional in terms of how we go about driving and creating opportunities to bring diversity into the organization.
So a great conversation with Fran as well. D&I is about intention, and I'm really happy to see all those companies intentionally changing policies to increase inclusion. So we're done for the session today. I would like to thank all our sponsors for making this possible. Our platinum sponsor, Vale, our gold sponsors, ALS, Apian Capital Brasil, Export Development Canada, Ero Copper Mineração Caraíba, Nexa Resources, Serabi Gold, Wheaton Precious Metals, and our silver sponsors, Forby Mining, Amarillo Gold, Baker McKenzie, Bellison Mining, BMA Law, Brookfield Asset Management, Sescom Barrier, CBPM, Equinox Gold, GE21 Consultoria, Geosol, Great Panther Mining, Horizonte Minerals, Jaguar Mining, Kinross Brasil Mineração, Landing Mining, Promon Engenharia, Sigma Lithium Resources, Toronto Stock Exchange and Toronto Stock Exchange Ventures, and Valor Metals. And last but not least, all our partners at GMB, IBRAM, INEM, Brazilian Ministry of Mines and Energy, the Embassy of Brazil in Ottawa, the Consulate General of Brazil in Toronto, Global Affairs Canada, and Prativa Results for their partnership. Without you, this event would never be possible. These discussions would never be possible. So we truly appreciate your support. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'll see you all very soon. Thank you.
At Vale, sustainability is fundamental to the way we do business. As Vale strives to meet the highest standards in environmental, social, and governance performance, let's take a look at how we're bringing this sustainability commitment to life here in Canada. We want to help create a future that is safer, greener, cleaner, and healthier. And we can do this by supplying the world with metals used to generate renewable energy, power electric vehicles, and build life-saving medical equipment. But we know how we supply the nickel, copper, and cobalt needed for these advancements is just as important, and we are transforming our business to make this happen. Vale's focus on sustainability starts with managing our environmental impacts. But it's more than that. We're pursuing a bolder vision, maximizing the benefits our operations create for all our stakeholders, from the people we employ to the Indigenous and local communities we partner with, to government and shareholders who keep us accountable. For us, it's about leaving a long-lasting positive legacy and establishing a new pact with society. This pact has us working to become a carbon-neutral company by 2050 and promoting or producing renewable electricity equivalent to 100% of our global consumption by 2030. It commits us to using as little fresh water as possible and reforesting impacted lands both within our operational boundaries and beyond. It's about us working to be the partner of choice by doing business in a respectful and transparent way. Vale's targets align us with the Paris Agreement on climate change and the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, driving us to find new and innovative ways to operate. Across our Canadian operations, we're doing our part to meet these challenging targets, including reducing Valley's absolute greenhouse gas emissions by 33% by the year 2030, and driving greater consistency in how we engage and share benefits with Indigenous and other community partners where we work. Delivering on this sustainability commitment in Canada and achieving the new pact with society will not only help us build a better valley, it will help usher in a cleaner, greener, brighter future of which we can all be proud.